Welcome to this webinar today, sponsored by the BYU Management Society. I'm Rixa Oman. I'm Executive Director of the Society, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. I'm glad you could join us. We're very pleased to have Kristina Narvaez here to present on developing a personal strategy for life. A few housekeeping items. Some of you have been on these before. For those who haven't, the audio portion of the presentation can be heard through the speakers on your computer. If you prefer to call in, your little menu will give you the call-in information on your screen. During the presentation, everyone will be muted except for the presenters. That way you can hear us, but we can't hear you. It makes a much more clear presentation for all of us. Many of you asked questions on the survey as you registered, and Kristina and I have gone over these questions carefully, and she will respond to a number of them during the presentation. Please know that there's no way she can address each one individually, but they've really helped her in understanding what your questions are and what you would like her to cover. We also invite you to send comments and questions on the chat area of your GoToWebinar menu that you will see. Now let me introduce Kristina. Kristina Narvaez is owner of ERM Strategies, which is an enterprise risk management research and consulting firm. She focuses on identifying, assessing, and analyzing the root causes of various types of risks that can impact the successful outcome of organization's strategic plans. So her focus, again, with companies and with her presentation today is on that strategy. She does this by working with the C-suite and board of directors for companies to develop risk controls and risk monitoring systems to manage those types of risks. Kristina graduated from the University of Utah in Environmental Risk Management and received an MBA from Westminster College. She's a two-time Spencer Education Scholar for the Risk and Insurance Management Society. She's taught strategy as an adjunct professor here at Brigham Young University, and that's where I met her, and as an adjunct professor at UCLA Extension, teaching an enterprise risk management course. She's currently will be teaching this fall semester, at the University of Utah as an adjunct professor. Kristina is a proud mother of 3 daughters and a son. As an adjunct professor at BYU, she taught strategy, and she taught her students, she had them write a written strategic analysis and plan for their life. As part of this, they were to employ some of the tools that she taught them that they can use for companies, but now she's asking them to do it for their personal lives, to look at their personal strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and how to reach goals in life and determine the external forces that could help. Kristina is on the committee that organizes these webinars, and a couple of months ago she told us in a meeting about these strategy assignments, and we thought, wow, this would be great material for a webinar, so we asked her to do one. So here we are today. Kristina's become a good friend, and I think this will be a fascinating thing for all of us, no matter where we are in our lives. I'm going to turn the time over to Kristina. Thank you, Kristina, for being here. We look forward to this. Thank you. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks so much, Rixa. I really feel honored to be able to speak to all of you about a topic that's really near and dear to my heart, and that's strategy. And I kind of wanted to start, I skipped a slide here. Okay, I want to talk about the plan of salvation, because this is my personal belief, and I know that there are other professors at BYU who share this thought with me, that the plan of salvation is Heavenly Father's strategy for us to reach exaltation. The plan includes the creation, the fall, the atonement of Jesus Christ, and all the laws and ordinances and doctrines of the gospel. Now, by living the plan of salvation, this is exercising strategic management in your own personal life. Now, some of the principles of the plan of salvation include being able to overcome challenges in our lives, setting goals and having a clear plan of action to return to live with our Heavenly Father someday, being able to exercise faith even in tough times and relying on Heavenly Father for guidance, leading your life with integrity even though the world might not do so. And last but not least, not waiting around for good things to happen in your life, but taking your own personal initiatives to better your circumstances. What is strategy? A lot of people ask me, even my students at BYU have asked me this, what is strategy? When we talk about strategy for our lives, what does that really mean? The definition of strategy is a high-level plan used to achieve one or more goals under conditions of uncertainty. And there's a lot of uncertainty in life. We can plan so much, but there are things that come up, and we need to be prepared for alternative plans. And that's what I'm going to kind of talk about in this webinar. Having a strategy in our lives is important because all of us face limited resources and limited time to achieve our strategic goals. Developing or formulating a personal strategy is only part of the solution. We need to be able to be in a position where we can execute our strategic plan in order to create a competitive advantage. Now, part of your competitive advantage is to be able to evaluate risks or uncertainties that you face in life and determine which activities have the most positive outcome to deal with those uncertainties. Now, a little bit, and Rixa kind of introduced this to you, but when I taught at BYU for 2.5 years, one of the assignments that we had, and it was really my students' favorite assignment, was this Strategy for Life paper. And as part of the analysis, my BYU students had to use some of the strategic tools and concepts that they learned during the semester and apply it to their own personal lives. They were then asked to create a gap analysis matrix, which I'm going to show you later on in the webinar, that helped them evaluate their strengths, their weaknesses, their opportunities and threats, and then compare that to resources they had, resources they needed, capabilities they had, and capabilities they needed to enhance their strengths and opportunities and mitigate their weaknesses and their threats. Now, you might be asking yourself, what is the difference between resources and capabilities? A lot of people get those two words kind of confused. So here's my definition. Resources are defined as your assets, your attributes, information that you have, and knowledge. Capabilities are the process that you have developed to coordinate human activity in order to achieve your strategic goals. For example, let me give you an example of this. My ability to play the violin is based on me, one, owning a personal asset, which is my 1979 Suzuki violin. My capability to play that violin is based on years of practicing and performing. The dynamic capability that I have are the processes that are designed to continuously expand on existing resources, which is the more that I have practiced my violin and participated in orchestras and solo performances and quartet performances, those activities have enhanced my dynamic capability to play the violin. And the more that I practice and the more that I engage in opportunities to play my violin, that capability gets stronger and stronger. So, if any one of us wants to develop a dynamic capability, we need to ask ourselves, what are we willing to do as far as our time and our money to possess that dynamic capability? Okay. Okay. Your resources and capabilities help you create and deliver unique value. Now, in order to define your own unique value in this world, ask yourself the following question. What drives your choices of which resources and capabilities you should invest your time and money on? Priorities help us to decide how much time and money to spend on developing our capabilities. Our priorities are based on our underlying values of what is most important to us. For me, I value understanding how risks impact the outcome of strategic plans. And I find this area of study most critical to organizations who are executing their strategic plans. And with that as my top value as being an enterprise risk management consultant, I set out to develop that dynamic capability of understanding risks involved in strategic plans. And how I did that is I devoted an additional 9 years of study beyond my undergraduate and graduate degrees to develop that dynamic capability of being able to help organizations identify and evaluate the various risks to their strategic plans. In my Business Strategy 498 class that I taught at BYU, I really love this mini case study that we went over about Mickey Mouse and Oswald the rabbit. So we had this mini case study on Walt Disney and how he learned a valuable lesson, yet painful, on being able to own his own unique value. So the story goes as this. In 1927, Charles Mintz contracted with Walt and Roy Disney to produce a new cartoon character called Oswald the Rabbit. And this is previous to Mickey Mouse. Oswald quickly gained in popularity due to Walt Disney's quality in drawing and animation sequences. So in 1928, Walt and his wife Lily headed east to New York City to negotiate more money from Charles Mintz, who was a distributor, and they wanted to expand the successful story series of Oswald the Rabbit. But instead, Charles Mintz fired Walt Disney and thought that his own animators could take over the Oswald character. Well, that didn't happen because they didn't have the dynamic capabilities that Walt Disney had. So Walt and Roy Disney learned well from Charles Mintz the importance of owning, not just creating cartoon characters, but to have ownership of the characters. So ownership of their most important resources allowed the Disney brothers to control the use of future cartoon characters like Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, and Goofy by licensing the images to others. Now, the takeaway and the reason why I'm sharing this story is to say to you, everyone needs to have ownership of their unique value and to be able to use it as a competitive advantage. And we see the success with Walt Disney once he took ownership of his unique value. Okay. Now, here is something, it's the VRIO model to determine competitive advantage. And VRIO stands for value, rarity, imitatability, and organized to exploit. Okay? Value, let's start with the first one. Value is defined as worth or utility. Your unique skill set offers value in the world. Rarity is being uncommon or unique in the world, and that's really important. We all want to be part of the world, but we're particular people, and we want to be different than the rest of the world. No one is exactly like you on this earth. You've been given specific talents and abilities to be rare in this world. The question is, do you truly know what those talents and abilities are that make you rare? Imitatability is simply making it difficult for others to copy who you are. Value, rarity, and imitatability are only as good as your ability to exploit opportunities that come your way. If we're not prepared to take advantage of those opportunities that present themselves, it is an opportunity cost. And an opportunity cost refers to the benefit that a person could have received but gave up to take another course of action. Now, this next slide, I want to explain to you is a gap analysis of myself. And many of you asked a lot of really good questions prior to this webinar, and I think that this is one of the best tools out there to evaluate your unique value, your rarity, your imitatability, and put yourself, instead of seeing Kristina Narvaez, put yourself here and go through this matrix, this gap analysis matrix, and ask yourself some really personal questions about what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, where are your opportunities, and how are you going to mitigate threats. And you can list like your top 10 strengths, top 10 weaknesses, top 10 opportunities, top opportunity threats, and then go through the matrix horizontally and ask yourself, what resources do I have? For example, I'm going to take the strengths, enhancing strengths. And I've identified that one of my really strong strengths is I'm very driven and very ambitious. But on the flip side, as you can see right below it, where it says mitigate weaknesses, I also have a lack of patience. So let's take strengths, enhancing strengths. It says resources I have. I have the gospel. I've had a great education. I have a very supportive husband and children and parents. Resources I need to enhance my strengths of being driven and ambitious. I need more sleep. I need a proper diet. And I need to continue on doing water aerobics every day because I have a bad back, blah, 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 blah. But I need to exercise every day. And capabilities that I have to enhance my strength of being driven and ambitious. Well, I'm very organized. I have organizational skills and great follow-up. But one of the capabilities I need to work on is I'm a little too reliant on my husband, who's a software engineer, and I really need to develop my technology skills. And then going down right below, it says mitigate weaknesses, like I said, and it's true. One of my great weaknesses is lack of patience. Resources that I have children, deadlines, and church callings, which help me, develop patience. Resources I still need is find ways to deal with my stress in life. Capabilities I have, I'm very motivated to tackle challenges, but one capability I really still need to work on is staying positive when things go wrong in my life. I have a tendency to take things a little too personally and stuff. For an example, enhance opportunities, I list grow my business. And one resources that I have is I have a good brand image after being in business for 7.5 years. I have a good knowledge of enterprise risk management, and I've developed a good network. But one of my resources that I need a better handle on is my marketing expertise. I need to work on that. And then capabilities I have grit and curiosity to find the answers. But once again, with capabilities I still need, I need better technology skills. And then last, mitigate threats, spend time with family. I want to pursue growing my business, but one of the threats is it takes away from my time that I can spend with my kids and my husband. Resources I have to mitigate that threat, I have a very supportive family and a great place to live. Once again, my resources I still need is sleep, proper diet, and exercise. Capabilities I have, a desire to put my family first. That's a strong desire I have. Capabilities I need is not to be annoyed with my family members. So I just wanted to walk through this gap analysis, but you can put any kind of problem and then go through the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and then ask yourself, evaluate your resources you have, resources you need, capabilities you have, and capabilities you need. Okay, the next one I want to talk about is, this next slide is to be able to assess your competitive advantage that you need to have an understanding of how you can be competitive in your chosen field. So I want you to ask yourself these following questions. What are you really good at? And number 2, how do you create value? 3, what resources and capabilities drive those activities? And 4th, what values do you possess that can support and sustain those resources and capabilities? And we do this with the sources of advantage. We look at this when we're looking and evaluating a company and trying to figure out why one company is more competitive in their industry than other companies. And the same applies to durability of advantage. You need to ask yourself, how are you going to support and sustain your competitive advantage? Do a self-evaluation of what makes you rare and unique. Sit down and write down what you think, are those traits that make you rare and unique. Second, ask yourself if others can imitate who you are. And then third, are you ready to take advantage of opportunities in your life? And I want to kind of emphasize this, are you ready to exploit opportunities in your life? I have found, looking back over the last, 25, 26 years of my life, that there were probably some times where I didn't exploit an opportunity that presented itself because I thought I was too busy or wasn't qualified to do something. But then there's other times I know that I was prompted, and one of my promptings, I'll just share real quickly with you. I was home on a Saturday night 4 years ago, and I had a really strong impression to go look at Y jobs. I don't know why I felt that way. I was starting my business. I was in the midst of doing publications and doing some consulting work in the insurance industry, but I had this really strong impression to go on Y jobs. And the second posting for a job was an adjunct professor in strategy, and they were looking for a PhD, but minimum requirement MBA, and I only have my MBA. And I had this really strong impression to apply for that job. And the next Monday, I get a call from someone in HR that said they got my resume, they got my online application, and that they were going to contact the hiring professor and send my information to them. Well, 2 weeks went by, and I called this person back in HR. And I asked them, I haven't heard back. Is the job closed? And she said, let me go talk to this hiring professor in the strategy department and see if they've already hired somebody. Well, it turns out that they had. They had hired somebody else. And the advice that this HR person at BYU gave me was golden. She said to me, don't give up. Things change all the time. I would contact this person once a quarter and tell them what you're working on, send them some articles, and maybe things will change here at BYU. Well, guess what? A year later, this professor contacted me and said, you know, Kristina, we've been reading some of the things that you've been publishing and following up on some of the work that you're doing. Would you like to be an adjunct professor here? So that is, I strongly believe that the Heavenly Father is prompting us to do things in our life, but sometimes we don't listen. And I just want to bear my testimony that I know that it's important to take advantage of promptings, because I wouldn't have had this opportunity to teach at BYU, nor would I have had the great opportunity of meeting those that have put together this Women in Business webinar series. So that's just my 2 cents on exploiting opportunities in your life. Now, strategic alliances are really important in our lives. Strategic alliances are crucial for you to reach your strategic goals in life. And I know from my own personal experience that my greatest growth has come from being married and having children. And this is the honest truth. Before I got married, I thought I was the most passionate, passionate, compassionate, patient, loving individual, and that my feathers would never be ruffled because I was just living by myself, okay? I didn't get married until I was almost 34 years old. I met my husband when I was 33. And being married has been the greatest lesson for me because I've realized that I'm not as patient and compassionate and understanding as I thought when I was single. And I'm sure a lot of you are just chuckling right now because you probably feel the same way. But being married has pointed out to me where I need to improve in the areas of patience and compassion and serving others. I thought I was fantastic at serving until I had a family, and I've realized that, you know, my family is first and my business is second. And there have been times when I've had to change and move my business schedule around to accommodate my children or my husband, and I don't begrudge that at all. And I think, and those of you who have written about how you run a business out of your home, my best advice to you is this, is start with something that you're good at and start your network. And start doing little projects here and there. And reach out to mentors. There are tons of mentors, and I can think of 2 in particular in my life that have really made a difference in my life. And one of them is, I don't want to embarrass him or anything, but one of them is John Bugala, who I met 7.5 years ago at an ERM, Enterprise Risk Management webinar. Workshop. It was a workshop for 3 days. And I got to meet him, and I showed a real interest in enterprise risk management. And basically, I asked him for his business card and said, do you think we can collaborate on an article? Because one of his closing remarks after this 3-day workshop on enterprise risk management in San Diego about 7 years ago was, if any of you want to write an article with me about enterprise risk management, just contact me after the workshop. So I did. And that has turned into 7.5 years of really good collaboration between the 2 of us, and we've written many articles together and chapters and books, and we're working on a 3rd book with a professor down at BYU, who's another one of my big mentors, and his name is Dr. Paul Godfrey. And I hope I'm not embarrassing these guys, but these 2 men have been there for me when I've had questions about expanding my business or going, approaching a client, potential client or anything. They have walked me through so many different scenarios, helped me, plan these things, review my proposals and everything, and really have helped me grow as an enterprise risk management consultant. And then I have another really good, a 3rd one that I can't forget either, is I work with Hanover Stone Solutions back east, and we do a lot of consulting work for the insurance regulators and insurance companies. And Dawn is a seasoned executive at Zurich Insurance Group. She retired in 2003, and she was on the strategic planning team. And my collaboration with Donna on some projects that we're working on right now has been so valuable to me. So I'm a strong believer in going out and finding mentors. And you will have different mentors in different stages of your life. But so this all goes to the whole thing about strategic alliances and why they're so important. And so I mentioned about the mentors, but also I've realized that me as an individual, I work better in a collaborative environment than being on my own. The strategic alliances that I have created with other business colleagues over the years has helped me develop new skill sets that I would not have acquired on my own. Personal relationships and business alliances are so important for our own personal growth. There are so many opportunities to learn from others. We just need to seek those opportunities out. So as I mentioned, marriage and family, that is a very important strategic alliance. Also your in-laws, also your cousins and your grandparents and everything like that. All that is really important for you. To support you in times that are hard, to cheer you on when you're doing something new and different. Also your church members, the church members in your ward, the church members in your stake, church members in different parts of the world. All those are good strategic alliances. And let's not forget our neighbors and our coworkers. It just so happens that I live in Utah, so basically everybody around me is a church member. But growing up in Southern California, I remember this fantastic neighbor, Mrs. Sparkman, and she was so kind to me. I used to go over every day after school, basically for candy, but she would sit and talk to me and ask me how my day was and everything. And it's neat. I'm 49 years old, and when I go back to Palos Verdes, I try to go see Mrs. Sparkman in my old neighborhood, and she always takes an interest about my family and what I'm working on and everything. Also, your coworkers are really important too, having good coworkers, and also your civil leadership and similar interest groups.
Kristina, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
And I think it has to do with your last couple of slides. My first question, if someone asked me to identify what my capabilities are, what my value is like, oh, I don't know. Maybe it's a sense that we don't want to tout our own horn, or we have a hard time seeing ourselves as others see us. And as you listed these people, are these examples of personal strategic alliances. I thought, these are the people I could go to and ask them, what are my values?
Yes, exactly.
What are my capabilities? Because if you have a good mentor or someone who can tell you honestly and not just try to butter over it, but tell you honestly, you know, I see so much that you can do this well. They can help you see yourself maybe a little better than you can yourself, and recognize where they see your strengths, and they would really be important people to go to as you figure out those different things for your gap analysis. Just something.
Absolutely, and I think they would give you an on, especially your spouses and your children, right? Your children can kind of point out to you where your strengths and weaknesses are, and what value and what unique value you have, because there are things I didn't realize. Like, I always look at myself and say I'm, technology challenged and stuff like that. But there are things that my husband's pointed out to me over the years that I didn't realize that was an attribute or a unique value or anything like that. And one of it is assimilating information. I can go through a lot of information and pick out the high points and stuff, and I really didn't see any value in that. But my husband has pointed out to me several times that it's amazing that I can go through really hard documents and do that. And the flip side is my husband is really good at organization. When I have to reorganize a closet or a room, because he served in the military and he worked as a longshoreman, he is fantastic at organizing things and knows where to put stuff. I, on the other hand, very challenged in that area. So I agree with you that the very people in your personal strategic alliances are probably some of the best people to go to and help you understand where your strengths, your weaknesses, and your opportunities and your threats are. So I do agree with that. The last slide that I have here, and then we're going to open it up for discussion and discuss some of the questions that you have, are 3 ways to create value in a strategic alliance. I want to first start off with one of the things that I've really loved to do with my children is this first Lego League. In fact, I'm putting a team with my husband and our neighbor and another one of my good friends, and we have 9 little boys in our league. And what first Lego League is. Let me just give you a little background on that. It was started by Dean Kamen, the inventor of the Segway People Mover machine, along with the Lego Group in 1992. And they started it in a high school gym in New Hampshire with just 28 teams, and today they have over 30,000 teams competing worldwide. And what it is a robotics competition. They have what's called some of you might know this, a Lego Mindstorm EV3 robot. And the cool thing about this robot is it's not a joystick. You have to program it to do this obstacle course. And the kids love it because they're learning science and technology and engineering and mathematics, okay? But the reason why I bring this up is, as a combined unique resource, is because Dean Kamen was this technology buff. He gets together with the Lego Group, and they put together this competition kind of like, Little League or, basketball championship or volleyball, but it's related to robotics. And kids qualify in their state, and then they do state championship, and then they go to nationals, and if they hit nationals, they can go worldwide. So this first Lego League, starting with 28 teams in 1992, has over 30,000 teams around the world. And my son loves it. My daughters have done it. And I just think it's a great idea. It's a great example of how you combine unique resources. A second example that I want to talk about is pooling similar resources. And one of our great examples here in Utah is IM Flash. It's a semiconductor company founded in January of 2006 by the Intel Corporation, Micron Technology. IM Flash combines the best from both the Intel and Micron. Intel is a multi-level cell technology and history of doing innovation, and Micron is big for their NAND technology and efficiency manufacturing, creating a unique culture of innovation. So IM Flash produces this NAND flash memory that's used in consumer electronics, removable storage, and handheld communication devices. And the third thing I have down here, create new alliances, specific resources. And this is in our book that we use for Business Strategy 498 at BYU. And we talk about Toyota. And Toyota, one of the reasons why they have such a strong competitive advantage in the automotive industry is because all their main suppliers are within a short distance of all their manufacturing plants around the world. So let's take Toyota Bosoku, if I pronounce that right. I'm sorry, that's a Japanese last name. If I slaughtered it, I apologize for that. And it's a seat manufacturer that Toyota has partial ownership. I think they own about a third of it, okay? And this strategic alliance between these two companies allows for improved efficiencies in manufacturing of the seats for Toyota cars. So to improve their collaboration, Toyota Bosoku built its factory next door, literally next door to the Toyota assembly factory, to cut down on the cost of inventory and shipping. And the Toyota Bosoku decided to build a conveyor belt to take the seats directly to the Toyota plant, which drastically cut back on their transaction costs. And so the reason why I bring this up about combining unique resources and pooling similar resources and creating new alliances, I think all of us can expand our network and reach out to those mentors or family members, build upon our strategic alliances to become more competitive in whatever we want to do. And I know a lot of women have written about, well, what do I do if I'm an empty nester? And what should I plan for the future? What things can I do now? And I think it first starts out with your gap analysis that I went over before. And like Rixa was saying is, if you can come up with 10 strengths and 10 weaknesses and 10 opportunities and 10 threats, and ask family members or others that are in your network to help you evaluate these things. And if you can understand what you have as far as resources and capabilities and what you need as far as resources and capabilities, I think that's the beginning of your journey. And I think it really will help you set short-term goals and long-term goals by understanding where you're strong and where you need help with. I mean, Rixa, do you want to add to that?
Well, no, I think that's right. We always have to understand where we are as we look at where we want to go, and I think these steps really help us get there.
Okay, great, fantastic. So do you have any specific questions that you want to go over? Because I'm pretty much done with my slides.
No, I'm looking at some of the questions that we had from people. So, well, it's we don't always have complete control over our plans. So how can we continue or adjust them with what life throws at us? And part of this, I think, is understanding some of these principles that you've been going through. But you know, how do we adjust it, because things change? But maybe
yes, they do.
Go ahead.
Well, and I want to comment on that. It was another slide because of that question, I was going to add an extra slide, but maybe for another time I can go into more detail about this. But in strategy, we talk about emergent strategies, we talk about deliberate strategies, and emergent strategies are really good for being flexible and adjustable to things that could happen. And a really good example of this is Apple with the MP3 player. There were other MP3 manufacturers before the Apple iPod. But what Apple saw was the problem with the MP3 player is that it was very hard to download music. So you had Napster and some other illegal downloads. So they created iTunes, okay? And the iTunes they redesigned their MP3 player so it had a flywheel to navigate for the songs. And because they made adjustments, they became more competitively, they gained a competitive advantage against other MP3 players. So, well, how does that relate to us personally? Is I think talking about an emergent strategy, we need to look at opportunities in our lives. And we need to ask ourselves, going back to the gap analysis, how am I positioned to be competitive or take advantage of an opportunity? And you know, sometimes we might not see those things, but maybe others around us could see that opportunity. And I'll give you a really good example of this is before I started my own business, I was working for a firm. They were headquartered in California. And they hired me to be a risk management consultant, and they wanted to come here in Utah and work with public entities on risk management consulting services. And I worked for this company for over a year. And finally, one day at dinner time, and this is so funny, I had a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 7-year-old. And I was really, really frustrated working with this company because I felt like I was doing all this hard work and stuff and I wasn't being rewarding for my effort. And what they were paying me, I didn't feel was fair. So my husband said to me, Kristina, quit your job and start your own business. And what's my immediate first thought? Are you crazy? I have a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old. I'm going to go start my own business? And my husband said to me, why not? And, you know, I've never been in the red with my business, but it has taken a lot of effort and networking and going to conferences and meeting people and doing little projects. Sometimes I did projects that I was just breaking even, you know, for the cost, you know, what I made on it is, you know, what my expenses were to do the project, but I learned from those opportunities. And if any of you are thinking of starting your own business, think about this. At the turn of the 19th century, if you look at England and stuff, there were many cottage industries. There were people that were making wax candles out of their home. The silk manufacturing industry, people had huge looms in their family room and stuff. And a lot of these businesses were started by women. And you can look at yourself and see what are you good at? Can I make a business out of it? And you can start with a business plan and everything, but a lot of people that are entrepreneurs don't start with a business plan. They just go out, find people that are interested in buying their product or service and start small and then build their operation. And we will hear more from those entrepreneurs in the next couple months. We're going to invite some of them to come speak at our webinars. But it really is a matter of having confidence in yourself to do something. And seven and a half years ago when I started my business, my husband had more confidence in me than I had in myself. And I know when I've talked to other entrepreneurs, that's how they got started. Just an idea, start small, and build on it, and seek out help. And if you want to develop a skill set in an area, find someone who's good at it and go shadow them or ask them questions, because surprisingly enough, I know a lot of people hold back and don't go out and ask for help because they think that they're going to be rejected. But more times than not, I have personally found that people are willing to help you. They might, but you have to be respectful of their time. But you can learn from somebody, and then you can go learn from somebody else, and little by little, all these pieces will come together, and you can complete the puzzle.
Great. So I had one question. You mentioned entrepreneurship, or the entrepreneurs. Now, I am a person who would never in my life do that. But there was a point in my life when I hadn't worked for 20 years, and I was looking for a job and thinking, I can't do anything. I haven't worked. I don't know what my skills are. I don't know what I could. And wisely, I had to put together a resume that in a way forced me to do that gap analysis. And so I looked at, well, what kind of experiences I had. Well, I had done a lot of volunteer work. I'd done a lot of service work in the church. And I thought, you know what, I have organization skills. And I was able to go through by looking at my experiences and think, these are the kinds of skills I had. And so that's what I wrote about on my resume, and I've been very glad I did. And of course, that's looking at this whole thing in a different way. Maybe we don't have to be going to be an entrepreneur to be able to use this kind of skills and these kind of questions to look at what we can do, look at where we want to go, and understand that, oh, these are jobs that I could apply for, because look, I know how to do this. I don't have a degree in this, but I certainly have had experience in this for 20 years in different kinds of things that I've done. So I think there's many ways to look at what you're telling us that can help make that difference and understand
absolutely
forward. We had one person ask a question, and maybe you know of a resource. They're asking if there's a more detailed program or a class to take advantage of this kind of strategic exercise. They're starting a new chapter in their life, and they feel like this kind of thing would be helpful. Are there particular books that you can think of, or places you've gone that have helped you with more, short of taking your strategy course at BYU or the U?
Oh, that's such a good question. And you know what? I'm not familiar with anything, but I tell you, if you want to buy a good book and read it, you can even buy the ebook. A lot of the stuff that I've talked about right here comes from the strategic management book that the BYU professors, Jeff Dyer, Paul Godfrey, Robert Jensen, and David Bryce have written. It's Concepts and Tools for Creating World Strategy. But I've gotten all my information from that book, and I think there's even more in here that I didn't cover. But I am not familiar with a book, and I could be wrong. There might be something out there that I'm not aware of that takes strategy concepts and use it to help you develop your own personal strategy for life. I base this whole webinar based on this assignment that I had for my students at BYU. But I'm not aware of a book. But if you want to check this out, and I could probably give the information to Rixa, and Rixa could post it on the website. But it's a fantastic book, and it goes into more detail than what I covered in this webinar today.
Someone just sent in a comment saying that there's actually there's a personal mission statement builder tool online from Covey Leadership.
That would be fantastic.
That actually, looking at building a personal mission statement would be the kind of thing that would probably help you to also looking, personally for things. So that would be something. And they give a website, but it's actually the franklincovey.com, and then look under.
And that's a great starting point. And then check out the strategy management book of the professors and build off that. So,
yes, let's see. How do you communicate your church and community service experience in a resume or interview? I'm returning to work after years and don't know how to do it. I talk to students often as they're applying for scholarships, applying for different things, and I talk to them here at school at BYU. And what I say is, well, what have you done? Because for someone on a scholarship application to put, I served a mission, it was great. I did lots of service. So that, you know, we're all going, well, we kind of understand what that means, but most people in the world don't. But if you put, you know, I learned organization skills to be able to plan my days and my weeks ahead. I taught training and personal management skills to other groups. You know, if you're a trainer, if you have done some of your volunteer work, and what you also want to put, not just that you volunteered with a United Way or something, but you say, I did this many hours of work over this amount of time. In doing that, I had to interview other volunteers. I had to essentially hire them to come on board. I had to do all the inventory analysis. There's lots of things we do in some of these jobs that if you sit down and think of it in a business sense, what is it that I just did? And then resume, it's important to write those things, because what people are looking for is your skill. And they will like your skill as much or more than just the title that you had at the company. And you do that with your jobs at your company too. What skills did I do? What kinds of things did I make happen? You know, well, I increased revenue by, you know, this much %. Well, maybe you haven't worked for a business, but you've worked for other things where you could create interest by this %, or I expanded the network of opportunities for volunteers in the community by 50%, or, I mean, there's other ways to show what you've done, and I think that's what's important to do as you look at your skills.
Well, again, I also share about the importance of internships. I had 2 really good internships when I was at the University of Utah finishing my environmental risk management degree, and also when I was in the MBA program at Westminster College. Now, the first, and in both situations, I did an internship at Zions Bancorp, and I also did an internship at Utah Transit Authority. Neither one of these internships were posted. I called them, and I showed an interest in learning more about risk management. And this is, I worked at UTA and did an internship when I was working on my environmental risk management degree. And what was unique about my major up at the University of Utah, which I really loved, they let me do a finance undergraduate degree, and then they let me take graduate level classes in mechanical engineering and safety ergonomics, and graduate level classes in industrial hygiene. And so basically I called Utah Transit Authority and I said, you know, here's my major in environmental risk management, and I'd really, really love to work in your risk management department. And it just so happened that the timing was right. They were working on building the light rail system, and I helped with all the safety training and the mock accident drills with the fire department and the police department. But I just called and showed an interest, and I learned all these great things about how they were doing risk management at UTA. And my risk manager, because I was working in the risk management department, my risk manager, Steve Kane, this Risk Insurance Management Society had a national essay contest thing, and I won for the undergraduate student category for a paper that I wrote about UTA's risk management strategies and developing light rail system in Salt Lake City. And that got me in the door with Risk and Insurance Management Society. That once I won this award in 2000, I also applied for graduate scholarships, and I got $10,000 each year from Risk Insurance Management Society because I had done this essay contest, had a degree in risk management, and it helped me pay for half my MBA education. But what I learned in that internship at UTA for a year was very valuable. And then when I was in MBA school, I did an internship with Zions Bancorp in their risk management department, and that kind of got me interested in enterprise risk management because at the time, Zions they had some new regulation from this the Basel II Accord Act, which required them to prepare a risk assessment evaluation of all their different departments. And so I helped the risk manager do that, and I learned so much about technology. I learned about financial reporting and all these different things with risk management. But once again, those internships were not posted. I went out and called places that I wanted to work at and asked them if they were doing any internships.
So you use those skills. I mean, you still got your screen up on creating value and strategic alliances. You created your own alliances, and I think that's.
I think that sometimes people wait for something to be posted or wait for it to be asked, and you have to take an assertive effort to go look for these things. And everything in my business, I've had to go out and find. Very rarely does someone that I don't know calls me up and says, "Hey, I want to hire you as an enterprise risk management consultant. Can you help me?" It's because I've gone out and created strategic alliances with people and built my network.
So I think to wrap this up, I think we need to take that time to look at ourselves, look at what we're good at, what our resources are, who we know, where we can go for help, and in lots of different ways. Any final words, Kristina, as we wrap up?
No, Rix and I were talking about some of the fabulous questions that were asked for this webinar. We're going to try to address them in the Women in Business Network blog. And so, if after this webinar, if you have even more questions, please send it in to Rixa, and we will, as a blog committee, go through them and put little posts on our blog about answering some of your questions.
And I've just received a couple of answers from people, too, as we've been talking about books that have helped them with personal strategic planning. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to copy these out, and you will get an email in the next few days that will give you the link to the recording. It will also have this information and the links to some of these resources. So
that's fantastic.
I think that will be the easiest way to post that and let everybody get it, rather than trying to give it to you a website verbally over the phone. But thank you, Kristina, so much for this discussion, for the information, for another way to look at our lives and where we're going and where we want to be and how to get there. It's definitely been a learning experience for me. I hope it has been for all of our audience. No matter our age and our position, we should be developing and looking at this and knowing where we're going in our life.
Thank you for the wonderful opportunity of giving this. This is something very close and dear to my heart.
And that's obvious in the excitement you have. So I'm going to send you'll be sent a short survey after, and I will send an email in the next few days with a link to the recording and also to some of the information and books and some suggestions for places to go. Again, thank you, all of you, so much. Don't forget our blog at byuwomeninbusiness.blogspot.com, and watch for announcements on our next webinar. Please have a great day, and thank you for participating in this webinar series. Appreciate all of you being here and being a part of it.